Hi everyone, welcome back to Falcon's House. Today we are looking at the direct daytime comparison of Far Cry 6. The EVE Spectrum 4K is on the left and the Epson 5040UV is on the right. It is a little hard to tell the scale of the projector here, and since it's 135 inches and I'm sitting about 10 feet away, and then that's compared to 27 inches sitting 2 feet away, it really is kind of hard to show scale here, but the 10 feet away at 135 inches is much more immersive. It fills your vision kind of imagery that I've kind of shown in previous videos, though it's also in those still hard to tell. But it's still fine, it's not really a big deal, but to me it felt a lot more immersive with the image quality, which is what I expected and why I have a projector to begin with. I was just hoping for more a little bit out of the EVE for being 27 inches going from a 24-inch monitor that I had previously. It is not as immersive as my 34-inch ultra-wide either, but I am playing on Series X and there is no ultra-wide mode, so it really doesn't matter for this comparison. There'll be other games that I'm going to compare between 16:9 and 21:9, and that'll be a completely different outcome. So, what I found was, for the immersion though, sliding the monitor closer to me, so it's maybe a foot away, really did help with the immersion, but I could still see stuff off in the background for like my other monitor. If I turn that off, that would help and I could focus just on this, but sitting 1 foot away from a monitor is still very close, and I don't even know if it was fully comfortable necessarily, but it worked and it made me feel immersed in the game. The monitor does have a decent amount of IPS glow, but this is going to be specific to each unit, but it is worse than my Alienware, but I didn't find it that distracting during gameplay, and I'm probably not going to mention this in every single video because it's not something that's going to change or could be changed without getting a whole new monitor, and I'm not dealing with that with EVE, so it really doesn't matter. Anyway, on the Epson, I found that the colors during the daytime, it's a daytime comparison, were a little bit more washed out. It didn't pop quite as nice, but this is probably fixed in a dark room. I just didn't do a comparison here, and I probably will do a comparison video for dark nighttime viewing between these two because they both really should benefit from it somewhat, though the IPS glow issue might still push a little bit harder. I am playing the Series X version, like I said, and this game is a game that targets 4K 60, and according to Digital Foundry runs somewhere between 1800p and 2160p with dynamic resolution scaling, so it's pretty good. It's pretty up there. It should be better than 1440p or anything like that on PC. And the EVE can do HDR, though, and the Epson is only standard SDR, so what's it, standard definition, standard dynamic range, I think is what it stands for. Anyway, since the Spectrum is configured on a single backlight mode, it isn't able to achieve the true HDR that like a few hundred dimming zones or an OLED could achieve, but it does have a lot more brightness and it does have a much more varied contrast than what the projector is actually capable of doing. So I think here, the brightness is noticeably better. When you look into like the sun or something, you get way more brightness, it feels more real, it looks better. So I do think the HDR is an advantage to the EVE Spectrum, but I think it could be even better on like an OLED or something. I don't have one to test at this time. If this channel grows, I'll get one and we can do three-way testing. But anyway, so the other thing I'll say is that I was using the 4K texture pack, which comes standard with Series X. So the textures between the two modes wasn't really that different. Like, both of them looked good. They both look great. There's a little bit more sharpness in the image quality on the EVE, but to me it felt like going from 1080p monitor to 1440p. It didn't feel like such a jump that I feel like I would have had going from 1080p to 4K, but the projector is doing the Epson pixel shift upscaling to effectively what is a 1440p resolution. So effectively it's really like a 1440p to 4K jump, and I just didn't see that much difference, especially because the textures files are all the same. PC version might be a little bit different, but on the Xbox version, I just could not really see a huge difference in texture quality. There wasn't very much aliasing on either one, even when I zoomed in. And so I don't think this really benefited either side necessarily. So they're even in image quality outside of HDR. And the smaller screen made HUD elements more present in my vision. And I didn't really have to glance to the minimap, like moving my eyes. It was just kind of there, and like I would like refocus and boom, I'd have it, and then I could use it more. So in a way, this gave me a little bit of an advantage in game to see it, but I do find HUD elements distracting in general. So I would prefer like how it is on the projector, where my vision cone is just focused in on the gameplay, and I have to glance to the side to see the map, even though it's a little bit harder to use the map in that case. It feels more immersive to me, and that's what I prefer. That's part of why I have a projector instead of like a normal 55 to 75 inch television. I wanted full immersion. So in that case, for me personally, I think it is better on the Epson, but that's going to be really it was kind of close, and some people are going to prefer one way and some people are going to prefer the other way. The game is locked at 60 FPS, and I wish they had like a 1080p 120 or some sort of performance mode where 120 is targeted with a lower dynamic resolution. And this would be a massive benefit for the Spectrum if they're actually the game supported 120 at some resolution and you could have smoother gameplay movement. Because otherwise, even though the Spectrum does have significantly lower input latency and all that kind of stuff, it isn't really noticeable in gameplay. Like 5 milliseconds versus 30 milliseconds in a game like this didn't really matter. It's slower paced. You're not like super run and gun. It's not competitive. It's just a very different experience. So I think 120 would have benefited Eve, but this game just doesn't have support for it. So I think the biggest difference with this monitor versus the projector is the fact that the monitor doesn't have speakers. You have to use headphones. So you could get an HDMI 2.1 receiver, but that is an extra $700 or more. And there are not any HDMI 2.1 audio extractors that allow a pass-through of 4K 120 to the monitor. So while you could use that one for HDMI 2 and 4K 60 in this game, it would be a limiting factor at other games that do support 120. So I will be waiting for extractors to be released that support 4K 120 or 8K 60 or whatever the super high level thing is. So I had to play with headphones, and I don't mind wearing headphones, it's fine, but it like is a little bit different. You get headphone audio is always different than speaker audio. And I was able to locate sounds pretty well, like things sounded like they were behind me or in front of me or wherever. And it was a good experience for headphone use, but I prefer not wearing headphones. So again, this slightly favors playing in 7.1 surround sound on the projector. But that's not going to be the case for every game. Some case you want that closed like headphone feel to it, that you can really hyper focus on individual noises and sounds, and the background noise is a little bit more present than it is in an immersive, like, because in a room you have sounds coming at you from all sides, but the little subtleties get lost. So this game, I think, benefits from surround sound more than headphones, but that's fine. Overall, I think the game slightly favors the Epson over the Eve on Series X. Having HUD elements not in my vision, surround sound, and the immersion level was better. While image quality and brightness were better on the Eve, it wasn't enough for me to prefer playing on it. So I think for this first game that I'm testing, the verdict is the Epson is a better experience. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment and give your own opinion on what you think about it.